These are the leaves that I picked a couple weeks ago. They've been hanging to dry, and so I'm gonna grind some Moxa Floss. I'm gonna make them into Moxa Floss. So the first thing you need to do is pick some leaves off of the stem. Okay, so when you have a bunch of leaves, you could do it all at once, or I'm just picking a few to get started and to show you. Okay. Then, and you don't want any really ugly leaves. These don't look too bad, but a few of them down here at the bottom are kind of brown rather than greenish. You know, so if a leaf looks really bad, you could, you know, not use that one. I've got all of these leaves, and the stems will never really grind, so you can't get all the stems out right away, but you know, one thing I do is I try to pull the central vein apart, and that gets discarded. You don't have to be perfect, but really if you get the biggest part out, that's good. Okay, I have a bunch of leaves deveined. I've got the veins here, which I'm just going to throw in the trash. Okay, and then you're ready to start grinding. This, oh, it's heavy. This is a molcajete. It's a Mexican mortar and pestle that's made, should be made with volcanic rock, although some of them are made with like concrete to imitate volcanic rock. And you can get them in Mexican grocery stores and places that sell Mexican goods, and you can also get them in fancy kitchen stores for more money. So this is a molcajete, and it's got the, I forget, is it called a mano? It's got the handle, and these are perfect for grinding Moxa Floss. So I'm going to put the leaves in, and then I'm going to grind. But good body mechanics says that I should stand when I do it, because if I'm doing it this way, I'm not using my weight and my strength. So I'm standing up. Okay, and the motion is, you're not banging, you're grinding. The coarseness of the mortar and the pestle grind against each other and break it down. So in the beginning, it just kind of mashes them, and it doesn't seem to really do too much. It always looks like you're getting nowhere in the first couple of grindings, and actually I can feel already it's going to make a blister, so I should go get my garden gloves. I'll do that eventually. Okay, so you know, yeah, this doesn't look like much, but I'm going to crumble it up and keep going at it. It's a dusty process, so my whole table will be covered with dust. Maybe my mouth will feel dry afterwards. So yeah, I know it doesn't look like anything yet, but the other thing you need is a sieve. And this sieve should be coarse. It shouldn't be fine, like when you're grinding herbs, you want a fine sieve. This is just a kitchen, really old kitchen sieve that's very coarse. And what you do, I move this over a little so I have a little space here, is periodically you put the moxa leaves in the sieve and you rub it against the side. I'm like actually kind of pressing it a little bit against the side. Not very much powder is coming out, but a little bit of powder is coming out down below. We want to get rid of the powder, and we want to keep the part that stays inside of the sieve. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, So I'm going to keep working on this for a while. You don't need to see all of this. It takes a while to get it going, but I'll show you once it's in a little better shape. A few minutes later, and you can see that it really doesn't look like leaves anymore. It looks like a mass. I did get my gloves, so I don't really want a blister. So I've just been grinding. It's only a few minutes later. I've sifted once since I turned the camera off. Let's sift again. Okay, so I'm just throwing all this in. Now, I don't know if you can see the dust coming out or not, but there's dust coming out below, and so there's more dust down on the mat. There's also some dust floating away in the air. And I can really smell the mugwort. So again, we're just going to keep doing this. People always ask, when do you stop? Certainly not yet. This is very coarse, but it just depends how OCD you are when you stop. Yeah, so I'll be back in a minute. At this stage, people will start asking me in class, gee, is this ready? And one of the ways you can tell is if you touch it and then if you feel like, ooh, I should wash my hands because they feel dusty, it's not ready yet. But if you touch it and then your hands feel clean, you've probably gotten everything out of it. Another way to tell is get a magnifying glass. And I don't know if this is going to help you look at it, but you can see if there are any little sticks or, you know, little dark dots of leaf matter. We're just trying to get the fuzz and get rid of all of the leaf matter. So sometimes looking with a magnifying glass can help. Of course, this would be fine if I wanted to burn moxa on ginger or something like that, but this is nowhere near good enough to burn on top of the body directly. This would not make good direct moxa. And of course, it also needs aging. Look how green it is. Look how green it is. The first time I made Moxa Floss, I thought, what's wrong? It's so green. Moxa Floss is supposed to be brown or golden. And you know, I put it aside and just left it out, and it was just out in a cup or a bowl. And a couple months later, I noticed that it had changed color and turned golden. So it does need to be aged, and aging it changes the color as volatile oils evaporate. And it's supposed to be aged in the sun, or at least in a bright place, not in a dark paper bag. So anyway, I'm going to keep grinding some more and trying to make it extra fine. You know, it just keeps getting smaller and smaller as you keep grinding it, and you keep losing more down to where the dust is. So I'm going to stop here. I might keep going if I were doing it for myself and for quality. I might keep going for a while, but I'm really doing this more as a demonstration for you. So there's still some dust coming out. I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to save this part and leave it out to age. And we'll check back on it in maybe a month or something like that and see if the color changes. Down here, I have this powder. By the way, these molcajetes, they'll grind into your table. When you're working on them, they'll make a big hole in your table. So I have a cardboard, you know, just a piece of cardboard underneath to prevent it from scratching up the table. So, and then I've got all of this herbal powder, which I can save and do a number of things with. One thing I can do is put it in tea bags and make foot bath or something with it. Or I could mix it in some other kind of external application formula and use it instead of using whole mugwort leaves. And there's a way of making what some people might call moxa cookies. that instead of using slices of ginger or garlic, you can burn it on top of these cookies that are actually dry, and so we can use this in making something like that. I'll make another video about it later. I have a couple more things to show you. First is to age the Moxa Floss that we made. That's really pretty green. I like these little containers that strawberries come in because light can get through, and it still has holes for air to get through because the volatile oils in the Moxa Floss need to evaporate. So it can just like sit in here for a month and it won't get cat hair on it, or whatever. You hear that the leaves should be 3 years old. The leaves should be aged for 3 years before you make Moxa Floss. I actually don't think that's correct. I think the Moxa Floss should be aged for 3 years. So I made what we saw before with these new leaves that we had just picked this year. Here I have some leaves from 2014. This is also Artemisia Douglassiana, which is the California type of mugwort. And so this is, a different Artemisia, but you can still make mugwort floss from it. I'm going to make it what I call the cheater's way, but actually if you need a lot, if you want to make a lot, cheating is kind of important. So this is a little spice grinder, and I'm just going to put these leaves in the chamber. Okay, and you put the lid on and you press down. So again, we're going to need to grind and sift it a number of times, but this is so much less work. If you take the lid off right away, there's going to be a dust plume that comes out, so I'm waiting a second before I do that. Let's see what happens. Not too much dust coming out. So it's not ready. It needs more work, but still, that was much quicker than me doing it by hand. Yeah. So this one, the leaves were aged. We can see it still looks green, but it's a darker green than the other. So I'm still getting the dust out. I'm putting it back in to do it again. Here we go again. You can burn out the engine on these things, the motor or whatever, on these things. So you don't want to do it repeatedly for a long period of time. You want to give it a little time to cool down. If you touch it and it feels warm, you want to let it cool off, unless you don't mind burning out your motor and needing to buy a new one. So again, can you see all that dust coming out? Oof, lots of it. Okay, so I'm going to do this a few more times. I'm going to turn off the video. I'll be back. There are some little pieces in here, and I find it's much easier to get them out with tweezers than with your fingers. These little pieces are like parts of stem that I didn't pick out, that is like just too dry and won't grind. And so again, if you want to just use this for indirect moxa, then this is more than good enough. Well, after it ages. But if you want to make some gold moxa floss for direct moxa, you need to keep going. And like before, we can check it with the magnifying glass I don't know if you can see, but you know, then you can see, oh yeah, there's a lot of little sticks still in there that I want to pick out. And so you just have to decide how fussy you want to be and keep doing this. So in any case, I am going to stop here because this is just a demonstration for you, but this definitely could be refined more and more and more. I'm going to put it in with the other sample that we just made, but keeping them separate. And maybe you can see the color difference. The Artemisia argyri, which is the Chinese kind, is a little yellower looking, and the Douglasiana, which has been aged, is a little more dark green looking, but they're both pretty green. And so you can see, even though those leaves have been aged for 6 years because they're from 2014, 7 years because it's 2021, even though they've been aged for a long time, the floss is still green, and green floss means that there's a lot of volatile oils still in it, and that means it's going to burn hotter. So you know, you want Moxa to burn not too hot. You want it, in Chinese books, they say you don't want it to be too fierce. And if it's really hot from volatile oils burning off, then it will be too fierce. So aging gets rid of the volatile oils, and you can tell because it will change color, and this will turn much more light brown or tan or golden. We'll see. We'll look at it, you know, in a month or two and see what it looks like, what the aging process does. I've got my little can of Moxa powder from making Moxa Floss before. Okay. Well, that's it for today. Well, a little more than a month ago, I made Moxa Floss, and that's on the first part of this video, but a month has gone by and I've let it age in the window. This looked pretty green before and darker, but now it's fairly blonde. It's fairly light colored. It's not as light, for example, as the Japanese gold. Okay, hard to see, but you can definitely see that it's fairly light. Here's the Japanese gold, and here's the one that I made and aged. So aging makes quite a difference. And so it will burn better. It won't burn quite as hot. And so that's why we age. It changes color. Okay?